I would suggest we all take the seat and continue our discussion. I'll thank you all for your interest, to all of you who stayed. Welcome to the second part of our discussion evening and artistic presentations, titled Using the Means of Art Against the Silence of Society, during which we will focus on the role of artistic means in dealing with trauma, loss, and the sense of emptiness that remains. At the same time, we will attempt to answer some important questions, such as, what can art created during wars and disasters teach us about the people's determination to survive, and how important culture is during hard times? In the face of immeasurable loss and trauma, how can art and empathy help to fill the emptiness left behind? Can they heal the wounds caused by societal silence and institutional failure? It's my great pleasure to welcome and introduce our distinguished guests, Aida Šehović and Hana Bajrović-Čardaković. Moreover, I'm delighted to be moderating tonight's talk. Aida Šehović, born 1977 in Banja Luka, Bosnia and Herzegovina, is an artist based in Sarajevo. Her practice is rooted in community engagement, collective remembrance, mourning, and healing. She is the founder of and caretaker of Što te nema, a non-profit organization dedicated to imagining and building a world without genocide. Šehović is currently developing a model for a permanent Što te nema monument in collaboration with architect Arna Mačkić and Studio LA from Amsterdam. She has been an artist in residence at the Grand Central Arts Center, Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, Santa Fe Art Institute, and Vermont Studio Center, and has received fellowships from Culture Push and Socrates Sculpture Park. The Foundation for Contemporary Arts, New York State Council on the Arts, Open Society Fund, Rockefeller Brothers Fund have supported her work, among others. Šehović earned her BA with honors from the University of Vermont and her MFA from Hunter College, City University of New York. Hana Bajrović-Čardaković was born in Sarajevo in 1992. She graduated and obtained her master's degree from the Faculty of Philosophy in Sarajevo, Department on Comparative Literature. She defended her master's thesis with the work Anti-War Theater in Besieged Sarajevo. She began her professional work in the field of theater in 2015, first as a collaborator and later as a part of the production team of the Mass Festival, where she is engaged to this day. Since 2017, she has been the project coordinator of the Memory Module program. She is the author of the book Theater Under Siege. In July 2020, she was part of the artistic and production team of the project Memory for 8372, commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Srebrenica genocide. She was the author and the co-editor of the monograph 30 Years of the Sarajevo War Theater Sartre and the monograph 30 Years Memory Module, which the Memory Module program marked 30 years of existence and activity. I'll just tell you what is that how we are going to proceed. After short presentations, which our both guests are going to deliver, up to 15 minutes, I will keep a close eye on the time. In the first round of comments and questions among our guests and me, you will be invited to join the talk and to share with us all your comments, impressions, or thought. Saying this, I will invite Aida to present her work and to add anything that I missed mentioning while introducing her. Aida, floor is yours.
I believe this, oh yeah, it is on. It's a great pleasure to be here. I want to thank our hosting partners who have invited me and Hana to be part of this conversation and who have organized the Berlin premiere of a film that I'll briefly mention as well. I've lost a little bit of my voice, so I will actually try not to speak as much. And I also wanted to share with you, because I am an artist, more of a poetic presentation about my work, Šta te nema, that I have been working on for the past 20 years. I mentioned this last night during the screening, but it's sort of a full circle for me to be here in Berlin. This was a city where I was a refugee in the early 1990s and a very angry teenager. And it's a bit surreal and sort of a special full circle to be here now as an artist invited to present my work. Paola mentioned that I'm from Banja Luka. Before we arrived as refugees here, we were refugees in Turkey. And then after we actually were forced to leave Germany, I'm just reminding us a little bit of some historical context. We immigrated to the US. So that's how I ended up in the US. I did not actually stay in Berlin because the refugee policy at the time was quite different. Just as a reminder that things constantly change. But I wanted to begin with a slide by one of my favorite artists, Felix Gonzalez Torres. This is his work, Forbidden Colors, from 1988, actually, so not currently. Just as a moment to reflect on the current situation that we are all living in and are accountable for. Perhaps I'm afraid that I will forget, so I repeat the gesture over and over and over again. I repeat it so often that my body, especially my hands, learn to remember without me how to carry and hold the cup. It's small enough to fit perfectly in the palm of your hand. It has no handle, so your fingers wrap around it, growing used to the heat of the coffee over time. To survive, I learned how to make proper Bosnian coffee, the way my mothers, grandmothers, sisters, and aunts have taught me. The kajmak on top must be thick and creamy. There must be enough for each cup. You must not forget anyone. The cups are stronger than they look. Because they are made of porcelain, I always assumed they came from China. But I wonder, who made them? And for whom? How and why did they end up here? And when did we give them their own name, Filjani? Because they are without handles, they fit perfectly inside one another. When the monument is sleeping, they are stacked in boxes forming rows of colorful patterns. Each year from 2006 till 2020, the monument traveled. But it was alive only for one day each year, always on July 11th. This is the date on which we remember those killed in the Srebrenica genocide, the first in Europe after World War II, after we had collectively said, never again. There are more than 8,372 cups that are part of the monument, each one collected for a person we lost, miss, mourn, and remember. Each buried only after at least one fragment of their body was found and identified. Perhaps an arm, a leg, a finger. So the genocide continues. Not the physical act of violence, but the endless waiting to find your loved ones. The pain remains and is here to stay. It is transferred to generations born afterward, generations who do not remember any of this. They do not remember being persecuted, hated, displaced, or erased, all because of their names. The Bosnian Muslim names. I cannot remember alone, so I create spaces where we remember together. This struggle to fully remember, to try to recover what was lost, is at the core of my practice. Perhaps if we remember together, we will remember better. Thank you.
Thank you, Aida, for this very moving and tender presentation, which made my heart at least broken. So I would then invite Hana. First we played the short video, which will be the introduction into Hana's presentation, and I invite you to play the video.
Zanimljivost i neka posebnost Mourna memorije da se radi o programu koji je zapravo započet još u periodu opsade. I to, još dok je trajala opsada, postavljena su pitanja kako živjeti sa iskustvom koje smo mi tada imali kada sve to stane. Tako da je prvi program bio organiziran 1996. Učestvovao, predstavljen je film Claude'a Lanzmana Shoah. Gošća je bila pokojna Joan Ringelheim, direktorica Departmana za oralnu historiju Holokaust muzeja iz Washingtona, i niz grupa bosanskih intelektualaca koji su pokušali zapravo pronaći odgovor na pitanje kako se nositi sa tim iskustvom. Što mi je bilo zanimljivo u nekoj drugoj fazi kada smo mi čuvali taj program je da zapravo smo primijetili tu neku, to da pogotovo kod Sarajlija ima ta opsjednutost vlastitim iskustvom. A duboko vjerujem da kada imate neko teško iskustvo, da je poenta tog iskustva zapravo da pokazujete empatiju prema drugim.
Mi nismo tražili ni ulje, ni brašno, ni šećer, nego samo svijeće za predstavu.
U istočnom Mostaru osvanuo grafit: Osama rahmetli brate, imaš li iko poslat na Hrvate? Ma gdje je ovaj?
Pošto sam ja kao temu magistarskog rada uzela teatar u periodu opsade, tačnije antiratni teatar u Sarajevu pod opsadom, pošto mi je fokus bio na tome da je sve što se radilo u vrijeme rata nije imalo ni propagandnu, ni tu vrstu nekako ideje, nego je bilo stvarno orijentisano samom sebi, ljudima, umjetnosti. I onda kad sam krenula da istražujem, shvatila sam kolika je u stvari bila ta produkcija, pogotovo u okolnostima u kojim se dešavala 57 premijera.
Dešava se opsada Sarajeva, kada svakodnevni prizori našeg stradanja obilaze svjetske medije i pojavljuje se neka vrsta empatije Sarajeva. Pojavljuje se neka vrsta solidarnosti sa patnjama koji se gledaju kroz fotografske slike. Šta se danas dešava? Pojavljuje se bezbroj fotografija Palestine i mi smo indolentni. I to je poraz ovog svijeta. Filozof Walter Benjamin kaže, sa pojavom tehnike, sa pojavom fotografije, dešava se sa mnoštvom reprodukcije same fotografije, dešava se jedna između ostalog sa mnoštvom tih informacija rasejanost. Dakle, nemate fokusa, nemate pažnje, jer imate hiperinformacije, imate puno informacije, ne možete da se fokusirate na nešto. I dešava se još nešto da nam prizori tuđeg stradanja stvaraju neku vrstu perverznog vojarizma koja pomišlja nesreća se dešava drugom, ne meni. I na taj način ti imaš distancu sprem nesreće, ne empatiju, solidarnost. Distancu na koji način ti kaže da je to jedna vrsta tvoje vlastne anestezije. Ti živiš, gledaš stradanje, ali ti si kroz neku anesteziju obuhvaćen.
Ja sam mislio u toku opsade kad smo mi živjeli u tom periodu, kada jednom to stane da će Sarajlije, Sarajke, Bosanci, Bosanke biti uvijek najglasniji kada je u pitanju borba za pravdu, za istinu, za druge. I nažalost nije to baš tako. Zbog toga smo u nekoj trećoj fazi počeli baviti se programima šta se događa u Libanu, šta se događa u Sudanu, šta se događa u Palestini. I od 2005. je praktično modul memorije dobio neki oblik festivala. U ovih 30 godina održano je preko 300 programa. Imali smo brojne filmske premijere, fotografske izložbe koje smo imali. Zaista, kada pogledate recimo postere modla memorije, vi kao da svjedočite jednoj historiji fotografije s kraja 20. početka 21. stoljeća.
Ako pitaš kako mi je, da ti roknu samo vi, sve bi ti se samo kazalo.
Sada se tu desilo jedna stvar, da su mnogi iz moje generacije pisali poeziju 70-ih, generacija 70-ih koji su bili u rovu. I tu možemo zapazati da vidjeti da su slični motivi. Šta je motiv? To je onaj fragmentarni svijet koji se raspao u nizu fotografskih bljestkova. Svijet se fragmentira. Odakle dolazi između ostalog ta fragmentacija? Dolazi iz eksplozije granate i kad galeri rasprskavaju ovaj svijet u niz detalja i fragmenta. Dolazi između ostalog iz naše fragmentacije unutrašnje, jer rat ne kopa samo tu sadašnju traumu, on naše prijašnje traume iskopao. On našu unutrašnju fragmentaciju, našu unutrašnju podijeljenost kao da predstavlja pretrag. Kao da postavlja ono što smo nosili i u sebi.
Kao rezultat tog bavljenja i iskustva koje smo imali, uveli smo nagradu za poseban doprinos očuvanju kulture sjećanja koju dodjeljujemo ljudima na osnovu jedne stvari za koju vjerujemo da je duboko intimno, empirijsko iskustvo nas u Sarajevu, a to je da je umjetnost apsolutno i isključivo spoj estetskog i etičkog. Da estetsko bez etičkog zapravo je u potpunosti manjkavo i da sve ono što je nastalo u toku opsade je svjedočanstvo o tome. Zbog toga nagradu koju dodjeljujemo ljudima za koje duboko vjerujemo da su u svom radu objedinili estetsko i etičko, tako da su dobitnici naše nagrade Ron Haviv, Milomir Kovačev, strašni grupa Lajbah, fondacija Karim Zajmović i drugi, da ne nabrajam sada sve. I to je jedna, znači, ta neodvojivost etike od estetike. I druga stvar koja je neki naš motiv je, s obzirom da smo mi jedan od najstarijih evropskih programa koji se bavi kulturom sjećanja kroz prizmu umjetnosti, ono što smo uvijek naglašavali da zapravo sjećanje je važno onoliko koliko nas čini boljim ljudima. Sjećanje zbog samog sjećanja neće i nema puno smisla ako ono ne bude motiv da budemo kao ljudi bolji, da budemo kao društvo bolji, a to neminovno znači da nismo među onim ljudima koji u 21. stoljeću mogu mirno posmatrati genocid u Palestini ili svakodnevno ubijanje djece i svjedočiti u tišini ubijstvu 20.000 djece. Tako da naše iskustvo nas uči takvim stvarima.
Nikome se ne ponovilo, nikome se ne ponovilo, nikome se ne ponovilo, nikome se ne ponovilo.
Hana, is there anything that you would like to add to this video which we just watched now?
Actually, maybe I will leave this for the conversation with the audience. I would just love to say thank you for having me here. And I'm really happy to be here with you, Paula, and with you, Aida, which we have this year on Memory Model, also with the movie which you presented last night. And I'm grateful that you thought that I need to be here. So that's it.
Thank you for very kind words. And then while preparing for this panel, we decided to leave as much as possible space for our interaction. But before we do that, I've prepared a few questions for our guests, and then I'll start with those questions. So what is the role and purpose of art in times of suffering and after war? So I can read them, and then you reflect and you say you're free to answer in your own way. When creating art about Srebrenica, are we trying to understand art about Srebrenica or Srebrenica through art? And here I would remind all of us on Pablo Picasso's Guernica. No? Is it that we are trying to understand painting as such, or is it that we are trying to understand what happened, no? Through the painting? Is art a substitute for the dark event itself, or for everything that society cannot understand in relation to Srebrenica? Here I stop, and then I invite you to answer to those questions, and then we might continue. Please, Aida.
It's on? Yes. Thank you for such deep questions. We're diving in right away. I would say that art is, in case of Srebrenica, art is helping us. I guess I would choose what you propose, that art is helping us understand it, but I'm not sure actually that we can understand it, that we ever should understand what has happened, because that would mean that we are accepting that as part of the reality that we live in. And one of the things I believe as an artist and a human being, that living genocides should not be part of our reality. Like, I just refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe that before I started making art, while I'm making art, I refuse to believe it now. I think that's any kind of normalization of any mass atrocity or genocide, I think is horrific, and it's the biggest lie that's being sold to us, like as if we are born genocidal. I don't think we are. Violence is something we learn in our homes, in our communities and societies we live in, and I'm refusing to believe that that's normal. Like, I really refusing to believe. So, going back to your question, so I don't want art to help us understand what happened in Srebrenica, because I never want to fully understand, because it would mean accepting that. what I think art can do is help us confront all the layers and the actual truth that's really, really hard to confront. And in case of Srebrenica and many other atrocities, it's that human beings, other human beings, in this case these were neighbors and other people who lived in the same country or same communities, have met, decided, made plans to eradicate another group of people. Like, that's the really hard part to accept, that it wasn't aliens that fell from, you know, the moon. It wasn't even the war criminals who led them, right? Of course, you know, you have one Hitler, you have one Ratko Mladic, you have one Milosevic, but who executed those decisions? And who is still silent about finding all the mass graves, right? Or who are the people who were spitting on Hassan, as he said, as he was returning to bury his father. So these are other humans. So I think part of that, sorry, I'm meandering, that's how I talk. So part of that's also the hard reality, that it's other humans just like us, who might look like us, who have engaged, and then other humans who have stood by silently and didn't do anything. That's also, we spoke about that a little bit last night, but the longer that I work on this work, the more I think that art should ask all these questions, but especially also unravel this very uncomfortable truth of collaborators.
Thank you. Hana, we move to you, and then before you start answering the questions, I would invite you to tell us a bit about your motivation to do the work you do, because last night we had a chance to learn about Aida's personal motivation, which became then the very political work as well, and knowing how the feminists do appreciate this motto, personal is political, I really was happy to hear that from you as well. But then I would invite you, Hana, to tell us about what made you do what you do, and knowing that you were born during the war.
Thank you. So yes, for the beginning, as you said, I was born in 1992, so that is the year when the war in Bosnia started and the siege of Sarajevo. And my brother was born in 1995. So also during the war, and in the year when genocide in Srebrenica was committed, in just with a few days of difference. So also one more thing is that my father was actor during the siege, and he's still in culture, and he's an artist. So my whole life was some kind of connection with the theater, and with that our war passed in Bosnia. So when I came to Festival Mess, I started to see what are the layers of that story, especially when we talk about art, which is born during the siege, and later the art which is born as an answer on that experience. So that is how it began, and after the years doing my work and everything in memory model, then I started to feel, especially these few last years with this, what is going on in Palestine, when I figured out that I could be that baby who was killed, or my brother was that baby who was killed 30 years ago, and I would never had chance to talk about it, to have my life, which I have. So I feel like an obligation, and it is at least I can do that because I had a happy. I was happy to figure it out how culture can be beautiful and art. So I decided to try to use my experience. To try to send a message and to do something about the world in my micro plan, and hoping that someone will hear it, and someone will say, okay, and it's nice, and it's good, and maybe it's better than to be in a war always, all the time.
Thank you. You both mentioned actually this idea of spreading the truth, or opening the spaces, the common spaces for people to mourn together, to remember together. And I would like you to share a bit of those experiences of mourning and remembering in public spaces. Both of you are in a different fields of culture active, but as long as I'm in Sarajevo, I could witness what the module memory means for the city, and in how important the public spaces are for the society to interact and to have the spaces, safe spaces where we can discuss, but not only discuss, but be together, sometimes not even without words. So, Aida, please, we could see some of the images from all the performances or gatherings, but I would like you to share some of your personal insights.
So I mentioned that last night, but I think it's important to mention it also again, that by the time we arrived to the US, and I was 20 years old, and we were supposed to have this normal life, and I still had these questions, like how could this have happened in middle of Europe? How could this have happened after Holocaust, after World War II, after we said never again? How can this happen if other people are watching this on the news, right? Because Srebrenica genocide, I don't think we said it tonight, but is one of the most documented at the time. Was very well documented what was happening. So it wasn't like that nobody knew, other countries didn't know what was going on. And those questions, by the time we were supposed to settle in and I was supposed to have a normal life, I just carried so much rage and anger at the world and at humans, really. I just felt disgusted being human. It was the idea for this response, I really would call it response to Srebrenica genocide being a symbol for all of us from Bosnia, right, for the atrocities. It's clear from my biography, I'm not from Srebrenica, so my father is alive, my mother is alive. I'm not gonna ever understand that kind of loss, like what it means to lose every single male member of your family. But I thought at least I felt like I can do something, I should do something as a human being, as a young woman in response. And the idea was very simple with starting to collect the cups that you saw. So Štatanema is made out of collected cups that we use in Bosnia to drink coffee. And my idea was just to start collecting 1 cup for each person who was killed, but to really collect them, because I always felt that Srebrenica was not my story, but our story. And when I say our, I mean ours as humans, not even ours as Bosnians or as Bosnian Muslims or Bosniaks, but ours as humans. And that was really the driving force, sort of sharing that pain, I guess, and loss with the other ones. And then Hajra and Nura, who were the founders, Hajra Čatić and Nura Begović were the founders of Women of Srebrenica Association, which is one of the groups of women survivors. I reached out to them, this is before 2006, and they collected the first 923 cups. And then this was after college, before I was going to graduate school. I took 2 weeks off from my job and traveled with one other person from the US, and there was 4 of us who just, on that July 11 in 2006, started putting the cups down on the ground in Sarajevo. And I really, and filling them with coffee that you saw that remains undrunk because we're making it for the men who will not return to drink it. And I really thought that was the only time I was going to do that. So I have to say, I guess part of it, I did it for myself, meaning in the film that Hana showed, connecting this ethics with aesthetics, right? I felt that there was a need. I felt the responsibility to do something because I'm alive again. And what happened in Sarajevo is that pretty soon after, one woman came and brought a cup, and then another woman came, and people just started coming and bringing cups. And that was also the year that we got one of the oldest cups. I didn't show you that image, that at the time was more than 40 years old, from a woman who's not from Srebrenica, she's from Sarajevo. Her daughter was killed from a grenade, and she said, I inherited this cup from my sister, and this cup belongs here. And I could see, you know, I was a very young artist, obviously, in my 20s, but I could see just people started ascending throughout the day and lingering around the cups and talking to each other and sharing their stories, whoever they were from. And that was an important moment for me to see. And I think one of the first examples in Bosnia and Herzegovina of this collective mourning, of mourning together in public space, because we all do that at home individually, in our homes with our parents or brothers and sisters and friends, but we don't do it collectively. And to do it collectively and then to do it visibly, especially in the diaspora, where half of the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina were forced to flee, was even more important, right? And so that's I think that's how I want to answer your question about mourning in public space. But I also want to say at the same time, while we are mourning, we are also reminding ourselves of our humanity, because that not expectation, but this frustration that I felt at the beginning, before I started Štětina, so in 2006, thinking that people didn't care, that they don't care, that other people are being killed. I could witness over and over again in each year, in each city where we were, that it wasn't actually true, that people did care, but they didn't know what to do. So in this case, this collective mourning created space for this gesture, as symbolic as it is, but it's still a gesture. It is still also an active stand against mass atrocities and against violence. And it was especially meaningful, of course, for survivors themselves. And I'll just mention one story, but in Chicago, for example, a young woman showed up whose father was killed. She showed up with her husband and her baby. She was in her, I think, late 20s. And as she was placing the cup down for her father, she ended up talking to the man next to her who was also placing cups, who turned out to be the last man who saw her father alive. So this is
hard and heartbreaking. Hana, what would you say, how is module memory contributing to the collective remembering, and how would you estimate the whole program, or what is that the program brought to society in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but beyond the society in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in the region as well?
So during the presentation of Aida's movie, Where Have You Been, on this year's memory module, we have, after the movie, the Q&A, and my former professor, Aida Šehović, great writer, besides her professor career, told something which I will read so I wouldn't misinterpret it. So, Zygmunt Bauman, who was the Polish sociologist and philosopher, told something that is something which I figured out later, that is what I feel about art and about what are we trying to do in memory model. So he told about how we shouldn't study the past to understand what might happen to us, but to understand what we must do in order not to repeat it. And that is actually the main line of our idea of memory model from 1995 until today. We are really trying to make the art which will use our own experience of war and of genocide, and to make us to give us empathy for the rest of the world, not to make us victims, not to make us angry without filter and without idea what to do with that anger and with pain, but to figure it out how empathy is the most important thing in the world. And that is why all our artistic programs, which we are showing to the people in Sarajevo, and not only in Sarajevo, we are always trying that they are beautiful. It maybe seems wrong, but beautiful in sense that is the art which is not pathetic and which is not aggressive. That is really the nicest of the art, but always with a strong ethic in it. And not only the art, but the artists who are making that art, because we truly believe that it is impossible to be a good artist. Maybe you can be talented, but you can't be artist if you are not human being who is capable to feel some experience which is not their own. Of course, you can't understand it on the same way, but you need to have eyes open about that things. So that is what we are trying through our programs, to show not only beautiful art, but to show beautiful people who are in charge of saving the real art, and who are trying to make the world better with their art. So yeah.
Everything both of you mentioned is more on the level of personal responsibility or the collective responsibility in terms of cultural collectives. And last night, Aida mentioned that you never address people in order to present your work, but it is rather that you get the invitations to perform and to show your work. And I would like, and you said at the same time that you still haven't received invitation from your hometown, Banja Luka. And then this is the question actually for both of you, because during the very first panel we learned how impossible it is to remember if we live in the country where one part of the country is denying the genocide, and at the same time those who were responsible or planned, like the state, neighboring state Serbia, is denying the genocide as well. And I would like you to tell us more about this, how it feels. No? Where do you really still are finding your strength to continue within such a circumstances? No? You received the invitation from Stockholm, from Berlin, from New York, but how does it feel if you, after 30 years, I mean, it's not 30 years after you started your work, but it's like the 30 years that you started the module memory, and you still haven't received the invitation for showing what is that you're doing in Belgrade, for example. And why is it I'm asking that? It's because only a year ago, I was the member of the Belgrade team of Heinrich Böll Foundation, and yeah, I know, I mean, how much we invested into the culture for remembrance and supporting again the individuals and groups who are not a part of the establishment. So please. say something about that.
So first, on a personal level, for Banja Luka, I mean, it really hurts. I don't know how else to say it. I've returned to live in Bosnia and Herzegovina 3 years ago, and I've made peace to go back to my hometown and spend the night, but I still feel very uncomfortable there. I don't feel safe. All I see are just symbols and signs of nationalism, and it's strange for me to hear that people will tell me, "Oh, you're from Banja Luka. It's such a beautiful city or such a beautiful place," and I feel like, young people who were born after the war, and I always feel like that city is in a way gone. So that's one part of how I feel, because it hurts that I've never had an exhibition in my hometown, that I'm not sure, or I've given up on expecting that I will be during my lifetime, that it will happen. But then another part of me, actually that same feeling, again, going back to anger and rage, actually gives me the motivation when things get hard, when I get tired and exhausted, or when we have complications with transportation. You can imagine transporting this in different cities was a logistical nightmare, from getting permits, a logistical nightmare. But then it gives me motivation to do it. But I've also learned over the past 20 years doing this work and witnessing and hearing also so many survivors and other organizations doing this work, that I feel we as Bosnian Herzegovinians have done everything we can. And I said that again last night, and this is also something I learned, I have to say, from my friends in New York who are part of the Black Lives Matter movement, who said, it's not my job to hold the hand of a white person and help them face their racism. And I feel exactly the same about Serbian nationalists, or not just nationalists, but Serbian population. It's 30 years, they need to do their job. We've testified, we've witnessed, there's proof. I mean, it's just, and I feel at this stage, I know I'd rather live in peace with myself and believe in love and empathy, as Hana is saying. But if you want to live in hatred, go ahead. I don't know, I can't help you.
Yeah, this is sometimes the feeling this is sometimes the way I feel. I learn from our project partners that they feel very similarly, no? In saying, like, we continue doing our thing, no? And we don't care whether the states are going to do their job. But I just wanted to stress out that this is not a pleasant atmosphere, no? For being the part of. So, Hana, how is your experience? Is module memory welcome in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Do people really come to your programs? And are there any regional connections and exchanges and the mutual support and understanding and the joint effort to bring finally the peace to Bosnia and Herzegovina and then to the rest of the region as well?
First of all, I would love to say that I really agree with Aida about this thing, because first we need to make our people interested in what we do. And after what the other people will do in other countries, it's their decision. They have their reasons. They can love it. They can care about it, or they don't even have to know about it. But it's important. What are we doing with our society? How much is our society ready to talk about their own, actually our own history, our own past, our own experiences? So I don't know how it's here, but in Bosnia, culture is always like, yeah, few of them, and that is what are they doing. When you talk about theater, when you talk about memory model, it's like 10 times less than theater. So it is the small group of people, but what I recognize as the worth of memory model is that every year we have different people and different groups of people, because we are always trying to have other topics and other artists, and that is how we are making connections with the people. And that is what is the most important thing for us, to make someone who is not going on the exhibitions to come on the exhibition because he knows the author, or he is the friend of author's friend. And that is the place and the possibility to show to people how art is really nice, and it's good, and it isn't scary, and everyone can understand it. You know, when you see some picture, we all can understand it. Maybe we will understand it on the other ways, but we will understand it. If we want, we can read something in it, and that is what is the worth of the art. When I first saw Aida's this monument, I wasn't think about it on the way how I think about it today. I need years to proceed it and to figure it out what all that can mean. So that is actually the most important, to show to our people and to ourselves that we need to it's the mental health. It's some kind of mental health to talk about our past through the art.
Thank you. Before I open the floor for audience, I have one more question, because we mentioned that few times, speaking about never again, from different coming from different times. So we have in Bosnia and Herzegovina never again. Germans do have never again. But if we say that Srebrenica did not only happen to the Bosnians, Muslims population, but also to the whole world, what does that tell us about today's world and our societies?
The never again.
Never again.
I actually feel more discouraged and depressed, I have to say, than ever about never again, because of the world that we live in. Because I can't believe that in 2025, in 21st century, we are, after we agreed, after World War II, we defined genocide, we we defined or came up with systems like international criminal courts, and we had the Nuremberg trials and we had the Hague trials, that we are having debates about what to call something, like what's happening in Gaza, a genocide or not, that's actually the most important thing to discuss, and that instead we are not uniting in trying to stop the violence. So I don't know what to say, honestly. I feel really, I mean, I'm continuing the work, but I feel like what's happening now is worse than ever before, because we are all complicit. I'm complicit also as a Bosnian American citizen who pay taxes. I'm complicit because the US is funding this genocide. So it makes me very, very discouraged, and it makes me want to leave the humanity again and go up on top of a mountain and live with animals and grow my own food. But then also I have to remember that we are at the same time very privileged because we are alive. Like, I had a meal this morning. I arrived here safely. Nobody stopped me and harassed me on the way here. I slept in a safe bed. Now we are in a very nice, comfortable environment. We have water, and there's actually people, and not just in Gaza, but in other parts of the world, who are literally fighting for survival. So it is our absolutely our responsibility and accountability to do something. And I really believe that in any situation, there's always something somebody can do. I really believe that. I think it's the biggest lie that we're sold, that there's nothing we can do. I don't know what that is. I think that's the question, again, that everybody has to decide for themselves. But I absolutely believe that there's something you can do.
Hana, please.
Yes, actually, that is the whole point. We had in 40s Never Again, and we talked about that for 40 years, 50 years. Then we had in Srebrenica Never Again. And we need years to figure it out what actually happened there, and that it was really a genocide, and how awful was that for the people who survived it, and especially, yeah. And now after 30 years, we even don't have Never Again. Now we are on that stage of our I don't know, evolution stadium. So that is really. It makes me angry. I'm not sad. I'm angry because I feel like I'm fake, and like we are all fake, and we are trying to make our place in the world where it's good for us, and to tell what is convenience to us, and to talk what is convenience to us, and to talk where it is convenience, and maybe to talk something else on some other place. And we are like gambles who are gambling with some other people's life. So we could have our life, which actually, if we live it in this world, it isn't so great how we think. So it's stupid to talk about Never Again. I think it's better to talk about why are we always doing the same thing, and why are we always our silence on the same things. So that's it.
Thank you both. I could go on for more questions, but at this point I'll stop, and then I invite you to share any thoughts, comments, associations, or questions. And please, before you do so, introduce yourself. Hassan is breaking the silence.
Yeah, again, I didn't want to say anything, but I just realized that nobody wanted to say anything, so I just decided to take the floor. I just wanted to emphasize something which is really important. Like I mentioned before, that we barely talk about the sexual violence regarding Srebrenica genocide because there were other priorities, and we never get time to focus on that very, very, very important subject. So the same thing applies for another thing, which is related to what you are talking about, which is resisting the occupation, resisting the violence under the siege in Srebrenica. So how the story of Srebrenica is being presented to you? Only through violence. But there is another side of it, which is people during the siege spent 3.5 years. They were not just crying and moaning. They also lived. They spent time. They were singing. They were events organized as a way of resisting the war. So we had concerts, pop rock, local, like a peasant music, like kind of events. So I learned my English during the siege of Srebrenica. I paid my English course with sugar. That was the currency. We had a disco where we get in and enjoy the live music and how you enter inside were 2 cigarettes, which were really, really expensive, you know. So this story is very much neglected. Recently, we produced a film about an amazing guitarist from the siege. His name is Samir Mehić Bovi, nicknamed Bovi. So he was exchanging letters with his friend who was in Tuzla. So when the war started, his friend managed to escape from Srebrenica, but Samir decided to stay. So they were best friends, so they were exchanging Red Cross messages. So these letters were used to create this film. And in the film, he was describing what was happening and how he suffered culturally, mentally, because in Srebrenica there was nothing. There was no electricity. We lived like animals, So in one letter he said to his friend, I have a feeling that I will never see you. And of course Samir died. He was killed as like all those 8,500 of men and boys. So I just wanted to bring up this very important subject that as much as we need to talk about the killings, the suffering, the hunger, the pain, mourning, as much as applies for the need to talk about the culture, the resistance through music and through art, and the other subject is, to me, very important. Recently I spend more time thinking, that how much art can contribute in public space within the memorial, and because recently we had some exhibitions of paintings at the memorial. Aida's monument was there, and we realized that this kind of form of understanding the past is really, really important. And I believe that in future it will be even more important to attract the audience that like that kind of approach. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hassan, for sharing that with us. I don't have any doubts that both of you are going to continue artistically resisting and trying to make the world a better place. I saw there one more hand and there one more. So please.
I'm Edisa. I'm here actually I was first to leave Srebrenica when I was 10 years old. Since then I'm living in Berlin. Maybe to take out a bit the heaviness out of this conversation, because I really, really love this symbolic of your art, and it's a really great ceremony. And I was wondering where are you planning to, maybe in near future, to present this ceremony again in maybe other cities? Is there already something on your schedule?
Thank you. So Štatenema stopped traveling as a living nomadic monument after it was built in Srebrenica in 2020. So we had collected more than 8,372 cups. So every person actually has a cup, even though they might not have a grave, because we're still looking for people who were killed, as you know. And since then, we've been showing the archive of the monument, which is that one image that you saw, cups in the shelves. So that's, I would describe that as an in-between phase, while I'm working with the architect that I believe Paula mentioned in my introduction, Narna Mačkić, on the permanent version of the monument. So the permanent version of the monument is a very slow process, and it should be, because my goal is to really leave something behind for the next generations, but to build it, to really create a monument that can still be participatory, which is very hard to figure out if you are not there. But Arna and I are really trying to develop that it still has a gesture. I loved how you called it a ceremony, that there is still some kind of a gesture that you perform. So we're working on that model. So I can't tell you where that's going to be. That's we don't know where. That was one of the reasons also why I returned back to Bosnia, following the CUPs to be closer to Bosnia and Herzegovina and to Srebrenica to try to understand this better. But we are presenting some ideas that are in the process in an exhibition that's opening at the Kunstmuseum of The Hague next week, and will be up until November. But that's not resolved. It's just, we're just kind of revealing our processes together, sort of where we are. But I feel very grateful to have found Arna as an architect, and for us, for ideas here to meet. But yeah, thank you for the patience, but it's gonna take a little while. It's a big responsibility. Yeah.
There are two more questions.
Eva Christoph, former member of the European Parliament from 1989 to 94. So I remember pictures from children in Sarajevo during Christmas 93 in black and white. And so I went to Geneva to talk to 5,000 Bosnians in front of the United Nations, and I'm very happy to meet you both here now. I would like to follow the questions and arguments of Hassan. Being from that older generation, in the middle of the questions you have now urging, and it's right, the world is not nicer than in 1989, but much more difficult, you are right. But I think it could be a link to you, because you always say we should share mourning, and that out of the mourning can come a certain form of feeling and a certain form of power. So I think we need histories of resistance and solidarity which have been there. And I do not want to make us heroes, some of us of that time, but you shouldn't know about the resistance and the solidarity who has been going on. And it's not well written down. There is not one film about solidarity and resistance in that time. And I give you only 2-3 little examples, especially Berlin could build on. I met Ibrahim Spahic, who is linked with the Sarajevo Film Festival, which is always in wintertime by Zufall, at the Human Rights Conference of the United Nations, which was in June, I think, 93. I'm not sure, 92. Yes, 93, in Vienna. And I was there with women from Zenica, with women from Belgrade. So I was part of Women in Black myself. There was somebody from Belgrade today who was from Women in Black too. So we have been women in black there, we have women from Zenica there. And we did a nonviolent blockade in front of the UN to get attention. You see, at least this picture would be inspiring, would be was heißt es? Inspiring, stärkend, empowering, yes, inspiring and empowering. And we had the debate with the women in black from Belgrade, and I, with a German background from an anti-Nazi family, I had the feeling at that time, oh, some of the Serbian women will go into the same problems like some German families. That was June 93. And then because Ibrahim saw me and then he saw an active German woman, he has to pack immediately and she has to do something. So finally I invited him to Berlin to meet the mayor, and I had a 1-hour talk with the mayor of Berlin, a woman at that time, and the translator was a Bosnian woman. She's not here anymore, but she was here some minutes ago. And then I went with him to the leader of the Academy of Arts, which at that time was a filmmaker, Peter Lilienthal, a son of a Holocaust survivor, and he was very open. And because I saw you yesterday and see you today, I thought, oh, I should look for that story with Peter Lilienthal. That could be very interesting for you both, and make that link. And I went to the mayor of Antwerpen because Antwerpen at that time was a cultural capital of Europe. And I had did the proposal to the European Parliament, where I was in the Cultural Commission too, that Sarajevo, in the moment of siege, should become cultural capital of Europe. So there is a bridge between us, and I'm ready to write down more of these things, but you should, I hopefully hope that you get money, support, energy to look in the history of resistance and solidarity between 1989 and 95 too.
Great, Eva. Hana, you made Hana wanted to add something.
Yeah, I would just love to say that you can't be more right about that, because it is really one bad thing about us, that in Bosnia we are maybe not forgetting people and gestures, but as the time is passing, on some way it's like we are now thinking that should be, that it shouldn't be even a question. Should you be on the right side of the history or not? But of course, that is unfortunately not true. The world is not modified on that way. So that is also one more thing which we are trying through memory model to do in our micro world. So a few years ago, we made a movie about Susan Sontag, who came in Sarajevo in 1993 and made a performance Waiting for Godot with the Sarajevo actors and actresses, and that is when we figured out that is really important. It's important to talk about people who have strength and who were courage enough to say, "Hey, it's not okay." Yeah, there is really a lot of people. You know more than me for sure.
Well, thank you for this contribution. Are there any more questions, or there is one?
Well, I'm Walter from the Böll Foundation. I'm very touched and very affected both by yesterday's film and by today's discussion and the whole reflection about staying silent or passive or ignorant. But looking at our German position and positioning then and today, also in regard to Gaza and in regard to war in Ukraine and in many other cases, I find it extremely difficult to come to a very clear position what is needed to do. Yeah? I think that we Germans, and this is what is bad about us, the Germans, yeah, we are often blocked by different lessons we draw from history. Yeah? We block ourselves. Yeah? It's not, if you look at the Greens, at least Eva Quistorp, who is here sitting, was very active in the beginning of the 90s. But there were many, many people in the Greens who thought the lesson of history is never again, and that means no war. Yeah? No military, no war, no intervention. Yeah? This is the lesson that we have to draw. Germany attacked former Yugoslavia, so we cannot attack Yugoslavia once more. Yeah? In Ukrainian discussion, so we attacked the Soviet Union, so we cannot participate in any kind of military action or even delivering arms to Ukraine, which is the attacked side. Yeah? And in case of Gaza, as you know well, still there is for many people, the main lesson is we have to protect the refuge for Jews, that they have no other way to protect themselves against attackers who want to extinguish the poor existence of Israel, which dominates the discourse very much in Germany, much more than in any other places. But this is not a position which is completely far from ethics. It also has a certain ethical consideration. It turns out it probably is cynical for many. It feels just perceived. But it's not that you we as a Böll Foundation very much sympathize with what you said about the very close connection of ethics and aesthetics. Yeah, this is definitely what we identify ourselves with, yeah, as Böll Foundation. So, but still, it's not that easy shortcut then to active political action. Yeah, what does it mean? Yeah, never again. Yeah, and so we are so often blocked, and we have witnessed this over many years. Yeah, how we wanted to do something, yeah, and there were very contradicting lessons that we draw from this never again. Yeah? And this is something which, in a way, frustrates also very much. Yeah? And there, what you can do is, what we're trying to do is offering space for mourning and communication and discussion. Yeah? This is, yeah, but there is not that one clear cut always, yeah, that makes you very clear the next steps to be done.
Thank you, Walter, for this comment and explanation where we are. Are there any other questions or interest too?
If there are probably others in the room here, I would like to help that your wonderful idea, process, and ceremony of participation and mourning can be done in Berlin next year. So I'm ready to help, and probably here in the room.
Thank you, Eva. As we had the very same idea when we planned this event, but then we learned that the cups are in process of making the final monument, yeah, and therefore, good that you had the very same idea. So there is the future in front of us, even though the contemporary moment is very hard one, no? And we spoke very much about the past. I would like us to close on future, and therefore I invite you for the very last remark, if there aren't any questions. There are more, no? Good, then two more, we take it.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, my name is Hana as well. I have come from a Bosnian family. I just wanted to first thank the organizers, also you, Paula, for organizing this talk with Aida and Hana, giving platform to female artists from Bosnia. Not only that, but also to do this in Germany and give them the space to tell their truth, unfiltered. I want to thank first that. And secondly, very simple question to both of you. Is there any reaction from an audience member who witnessed your art, your project, etc., that sticks to you the most or that surprised you the most? Yeah.
Okay, while Aida is thinking about her experience, I will tell you one story which is not my experience, but it involves me as an actor now in present. So when we had the premiere of this movie documentary about Susan Sontag, we got one woman who came. She was in her 50s, maybe. She came with her daughter. I don't know age, but it's not important. And she came to me and Nihat Krešavljaković, my director, and she told me that she had to come that night in the theater to watch the movie because the performance, which was movie about, that Waiting for Godot, saved her life. And then we thought that it is the story about how culture in Sarajevo saved people not to become crazy, etc., etc. But no, it was really the situation where the performance had saved her life, because when the premiere of the Waiting for Godot in 1993 was, her daughter was a teenager. She wanted to go. Her mother didn't want to go because they lived on the other side of the city. It was shelling. It was dangerous. But she said, I will never have chance again to watch the Susan Sontag in Sarajevo. Please come. And in the end, mother said yes. So they came by the foot on the other side of the city, watched the performance, and when they came back to their apartment, our apartment wasn't there. It was destroyed by the shelling. So that is maybe the most impressive thing which I heard about the power of art. Yeah.
I also, after Hassan is mentioning the resistance, which is so important, and you also mentioning that, which we do not talk about enough. That's absolutely true, but I keep thinking of and he wasn't the only one, but our volunteer who is Serbian, who was with us in Boston, who was just so grateful that there was space for him as well to be part of this. And I, you know, acknowledging his own trauma and difficulties that he couldn't perhaps share with the rest of his family where he was spending the day. But I think I think that's probably one of the most meaningful moments for me. And like I said, he wasn't the only one, but that he felt that there was a space for him as well within the space that we created, this temporary space, or što to nema. And that reminds me also of my old art teacher from New York, who, you know, who was one of the few who was supporting me as I was developing these ideas in graduate school. And he always used to tell me how many people is enough to have an audience, like how many, like the big question, right? And it was like, is one enough? And he would convince me one is enough. So for me, that one, I won't name him to protect him, but that one person is enough, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and your emotional answers. But there was one more question, or if not, you wanted, but now you hesitate.
I will keep it as short as possible. I was wondering, because you elaborated on how to cope more or less, right, with the past, and how to integrate it into the present. And generally, when it comes to trauma, I personally was influenced a lot by the psychoanalytical background or the psychoanalytical theory, which targets very much at this thing of once you have to cope with something so terrible, such as a genocide or a war, there's just this human desire to make sense of your experiences and your stories, and then you have this event of which you can't make sense. There is no such narration as it happened for a reason. There was no such reason. It happened for nothing, for like Serbian revisionism whatsoever. And I was wondering, like for you two personally, when you create art, when you elaborate as like Bosnian civil society, how, like, what's the narrative? Like, how can you integrate such a thing into your own life stories? Because it is a part of your life after all, and you can't eradicate it, right? So how do you cope with that?
You mean, how do you cope personally with?
Or maybe both, like personally and when it comes to your art production.
If I may correct you at the beginning, but it's interesting, you said about making work about the past. I feel like I don't make the work about past, but about the present, because I think the way we remember is actually about the present, or we don't remember, or stay silent and choose not to remember. But I think, and I'm gonna answer a question also by reflecting. Was it Carl from the previous, the moderator? Yes, I'm sorry, I'm spacing out on your name. Walter, sorry. About this feeling of being confused or confusing yourself. I think it's super important to remember that, yes, we can discuss about, we can analyze art and have these intellectual conversations and things like that, and we should, to create real critical work that has value. But most of all, we need to feel. So it's very simple. So for me, there's no, it's not even the question as you were asking, but what if you just step out of that and just ask yourself, what do you feel? Like, what do you feel if you see a picture of that baby, you know, like on Instagram, like what do you feel? Like that's, so in a way it's like super simple. What you're describing is of course important, it's a tool, but I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't speak from that, but all I want to do is to make other people feel, and for us to feel, so that we don't have to you know, live in a world that's really dominated by violence so much.
For me, it's like it's the same thing, and personally and professionally, because I'm about 10 years in this topic of theater during the siege, and the experience of theater during the siege, and the life of theater during the siege, and that is my personal story also, and my professional story, and for me it's actually it's not about it's about happiness. Because when I talk about that, I don't talk about war. Yes, there is a war, there is no electricity, food, people are dying, not dying, being killed. But you can't, until one man is alive and he's breathing, he's alive, and you can't kill him, and he will have needs to be more than an animal, than to just survive. And the story about theater during the siege is about that. You can try to kill us, but you can't kill us. Every man, every woman have needs, and one of the needs is need to show how they feel, to show that they are alive, and that is the art in its sense, you know. And when I talk about theater during the siege, it is story about life and about victory, and it is story that is better to be already on that side than to be when you lost on trying to be on that side, because then you are empty for the really big experience. So that's it.
Thank you, Hana. So I suggest we continue our conversation informally in front of our foundation in the garden, and then we continue along the lines Aida said, and share what is that we felt over the last 4 hours of discussion, which is never-ending story, and this is what we learned. Now we have peace in some parts of the world, but then we have to maintain this peace and then to fight for the more peace in the world. So thank you very much for your interest, and please join the downstairs discussion as well.